Come, let us fix our eyes on Jesus. This is Unpopular Theology, episode 86. Today I'm going to be talking about the fourth commandment. Before we get started, go ahead and hit the like button, go ahead and subscribe, go to our Facebook page, like us over there, post new content there at the end of each week with these videos, and at the end of each month with the Unpopular Bulletin. And with that being said, this is my last episode in Minnesota for a while, as I will be going back to Wisconsin to finish up my last semester of college this year. So yeah, with that being said, going through the Catechism. This is Unpopular Theology. So last month when we dealt with the third commandment, we actually finished up what's called the first table of the law, which governs our relationship between God and ourselves. The first table of the law is best summarized in this way. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. Now we move to the second table of the law. This governs the relationship between man and other people. And to be quite honest, the second table of the law tends to not be too controversial. There will be a few things that I'll bring up that are controversial. But other than that, up until very recently, the second table of the law was considered to be a pretty universal standard. Of course, second table of the law is best summarized as you shall love your neighbor as yourself. So, when we are talking about the second table of the law, we first have to go into what that looks like with people who are neighbors who have authority over us. So with that, we dive into the fourth commandment. The fourth commandment, honor your father and mother. What does this mean? We should fear and love God so that we do not despise or anger our parents and other authorities, but honor them, serve and obey them, love and cherish them. So this commandment seems fairly straightforward. You're supposed to love your parents. But there's also the fact that we have other authorities over us. And so this is where we Lutherans get into what's called the three estates. And the three estates are the church, the government, and the family. This is not the three estates from French history. That's a completely different thing. Luther came up with this fairly independently. So first we have the church. It's fairly simple. That's God's reign over his church. Not much to say there. I mean, yeah, it's the clergy, the members of the congregation are all part of the church. Then there is the government. That's the king, or in our case, the president, the legislature, police. Anybody who works for the government falls under that category. And we do because we have to submit to the government's laws. And then there is the family. Now, the family also includes your work in this situation. And basically the idea was that when Luther came up with this, the family basically was the business you worked for. So that's how it is. But yeah, we are supposed to honor those in authority over us. So what does that look like? Well, of course, with government it means we pay our taxes, render unto Caesar as Christ said. We obey their authority. We follow the laws. I'll get to Christian resistance in a second here. In the family, it means we obey our parents. We do what they tell us to do as long as they don't contradict Scripture. And in the church, that means we give our pastors the due respect that they deserve. So, of course, we have the issue of those in unrighteous rulers. And this is honestly something I've been thinking about lately, as I've been trying to prepare for this episode. So, there's always the case where someone will bring up the what about, what if Hitler was your ruler? Do you still obey him? And the fact is, you obey your rulers as long as they do not tell you to directly do something against Scripture. So if, in the case of Nazi Germany, if the Gestapo tells you to turn in your Jewish neighbor, you don't do that, because that would break the fifth commandment. Yeah, that is basically what it is. Also, if the government has an unjust law, you work to change that law. This is why Luther is especially clear that Christians ought to be involved with the government, because the idea is that if Christians aren't involved with the government, how are we going to get any sort of just society? We're not. Therefore, perfect example of this is the fact that abortion is legal in this country. Today is the March for Life, after all, so good tip of the cap to the wonderful event going on in D.C., where, yeah, abortion is legal in this country. We as Christians work to change that. Now, when it comes to armed resistance, I don't really have an answer right now. I'm doing research on it, and it's tough to come up with an answer. The best I've come up with so far is Hermann Sasse's answer on this. Hermann Sasse was a German theologian from about 1930 or so until 1970. So he lived through Hitler in Nazi Germany. His answer is that Christians may not participate in it. However, if a government should fall because of a insurrection, then the government receives that as judgment from God, and the Christian must obey the new government and participate in it if possible. But he also emphasizes again that the Christian should not participate in it. Like I said, I don't really know what I think about it, but that seems to be the right answer right now. Maybe in a future episode I can formulate this thought a little more. So, in summary, we obey our parents and other authorities. I forgot that this commandment used to have a promise. It used to be longer in the Catechism, where it had the promise attached that you may live long in the land. And the idea is that you're not necessarily guaranteed to live long in the land, but I think we can all agree that those who follow the authorities, especially when it comes to obeying the law and whatnot, tend to live longer than those who do not. So the idea there is you do this because you may live a quiet and peaceful life, which I forgot what part of the Catechism that's from, but it's in there. So, yeah, that pretty much wraps it up. To summarize, we talked about the fourth commandment and its explanation, who are authorities over us, and what Christian resistance may look like, and the promise attached to this commandment. So this wraps it up for this week. Next week, I will be doing our monthly special episode where I will be talking about reasons why I'm pro-life, and it's not going to be just about life in the womb. I'm also going to be talking about end-of-life cases. So, till next week, keep your eyes fixed on Jesus.